Let's begin with opening prayer. Dear Lord, thank you so much for bringing us to the beginning of this new month, the last month of this year, the beginning of this week. Please give us the power to always reflect your character and to keep up and to follow the light that you are providing us in this movement. Thank you for calling us to be part of the 144,000. And thank you for allowing us to be priests. Please continue to prepare us for the work that we are to do on earth and in heaven. And please continue to provide for all of our needs in Christ's name. And please be with us during this meeting today. Amen.
So welcome everybody to YPG meeting 127. Today is December 3rd, 2023.
The title of today's lesson is Second Half of 2023 Summary.
So this lesson we're going to review all of the lessons we went over in the second half of the year.
In July, we looked at what the Supreme Court is doing. That's lesson 122. The Supreme Court, the Supreme Supermajority. The Supreme Court has 9 justices, and thanks to Donald Trump and Mitch McConnell, it is now 6-3 in favor of conservatives. We saw how Trump appointed Neil Gorsuch in 2017, Brett Kavanaugh in 2018, and Amy Coney Barrett in 2020, all of whom are conservative. The picture is the current makeup of the Supreme Court. The court is usually 5-4, but with the supermajority, the conservative viewpoint usually wins. We then explored the concept of originalism. Originalism is the belief that documents from the founding of the United States, specifically the Constitution, should be read and interpreted like the founders meant them to be. This is not just the Constitution, it's also just like old documents from the beginning of the United States. Those who oppose this view believe that the Constitution needs to be applied to our time and circumstances, while originalists would say that is bringing your own opinion into the law. Next, we looked at 6 Supreme Court cases that were ruled on this year. Sorry, one second. Okay, we looked at 6 Supreme Court cases that were happening this year. The first one was Sackett v. Environmental Protection Agency, or the EPA. Sorry, the slides are out of order. Okay, Sackett v. Environmental Protection Agency, or the EPA. That was the case going on for a long time, and it wasn't decided until now or earlier this year. A family was suing the EPA because they tried to tell them they couldn't build a house on their land because they were building it too close to a lake. All 9 justices ruled in favor of the family, saying they were allowed to build wherever they wanted on their land. But 5 of 5 conservatives, excluding Kavanaugh, also put more regulations on the EPA, hindering them from being able to protect more of nature, specifically wetlands. The next case, Moore v. Harper, was about a new map of political districts that were drawn in North Carolina. because North Carolina had gotten another representative in the House in the 2020 election, and also because of the census, which happens every 10 years. So the case became known as Moore v. Harper. But this case also had another concept at play called the Independent State Legislature Document, or ISLD. This state This says that state legislatures are solely in charge of state elections. So the map the North Carolina legislature had drawn couldn't be changed or argued against even by a court. And the main problem was Democrats were arguing that the map was gerrymandered to favor Republicans. But the Supreme Court ruled otherwise. It told North Carolina, well, otherwise than the legislature, it told North Carolina to fix their maps, thus undermining the ISLD doctrine. This was a 6-3 ruling where the Liberals were sided with Roberts, Kavanaugh, and Barrett. Next, we looked at Allen versus Milligan, and this was a similar case to the previous one. It was also about gerrymandering. But in the state of Alabama, the court ruled in this case as well. It said that it was in fact gerrymandering the map, and there was a 5-4 ruling where the Liberals were joined by Roberts and Kavanaugh. The next case, or actually two cases that were decided at the same time, Gonzalez v. Google and Twitter v. Tamna, where two cases, like I said, were decided together. In both, the families of victims of terrorist attack sued these tech companies because they believed that they were aiding the terrorist organizations, because terrorist organizations use social media to reach people and to spread their ideas. The Supreme Court ruled unanimously, siding with the tech companies. Case number 5, I believe. 303 Creative LLC versus LNS. This was a case on free speech and LGBTQ plus rights. In Colorado, a wedding website company put a disclaimer on their website saying they would not do business with homosexual couples. But then this is illegal in the state of Colorado. You can't discriminate. You can't also say that you are going to discriminate. So the company sued. The Supreme Court ruled in favor of the company, saying they had the right to free speech. This was a 6-3 ruling where with the conservative majority. So the liberals voted against it. The conservatives voted in saying that the company could, in fact, say they won't do business. The last case that we looked at in YPG in this lesson was Students for Fair Admission v. University of North Carolina and Students for Fair Admission v. President and Fellows of Harvard University. So, two connected cases. This was a case on affirmative action in education. A group of Asian Americans sued Harvard for not being admitted, saying they weren't admitted because of affirmative action. Affirmative action in education means that institutions can take someone's race into consideration when they admit people to make sure that it's diverse, or at least slightly diverse. But the Supreme Court ruled against it, making affirmative action illegal with a conservative majority of 6-3. So as we can see, although the Supreme Court doesn't always rule in the conservatives' favor, it does, like in the case of gerrymandering and the ISLD, the conservative supermajority does make a lot of decisions that are in favor of conservatives and to further their ideology.
Lesson 123. Lesson 123, Abortion Rights After Dobbs, was presented and published on August 26 of 2023. So, in abortion rights after Dobbs, lesson 123, we began by refreshing ourselves on the Dobbs v. Jackson Supreme Court decision. In 2018, Mississippi passed a law that banned abortion in the state after 15 weeks. After lawsuits, the case was taken up by the Supreme Court, and on June 24, 2022, the court ruled that abortion was not a constitutional right. Once the Supreme Court ruled that abortion wasn't constitutional, many trigger laws went into effect to ban abortion. 13 states had trigger laws in place that would ban abortion once it was officially unconstitutional. 9 states, where there is some overlap with the 13, had trigger laws in place as far back as the 1970s. After talking about Roe v. Wade being overturned and abortion being banned, in lesson 123, we looked at abortion pills. The two primary abortion pills are mifepristone and misoprostol. Since they were approved, the FDA has been slowly lowering the restrictions around them, such as extending their deadline of use from 7 weeks of pregnancy to 10 weeks. These pills are usually more than half. Uh, these pills are usually used in more than half of the abortions in the United States, as they have up to a 97% efficacy or efficiency. Unfortunately, after Dobbs v. Jackson, red states began to ban these pills. In 13 states, they are nearly completely banned. Luckily, blue states such as New York are taking action to ensure the pills are available where they can. In July of 2023, the FDA approved a new pill called Norgestrel. It's an abortion pill. Well, it's not an abortion pill, but rather its goal is to prevent pregnancy in the first place. While what makes this pill unique is that it's the first pill of its kind that doesn't need to be prescribed. It can be simply purchased over the counter. The director of the FDA says that the pill will be available to millions of people in the United States. So moving on to the next section of the lesson, we discuss the state of women's health. Many abortion clinics have been forced to shut down in the states where abortion is banned. This is because their main source of income was performing abortions. But if abortions are banned, they can no longer do that, and therefore they can't get their main source of income. So, and then if they don't have their main source of income, they won't make enough money to stay open. Abortion doesn't even need to be directly banned for the clinic to close. If abortion laws aren't clear, the clinic will close anyway because the doctors don't want to risk losing their license and going to jail. Some clinics move locations across the border where abortion is allowed, so move to a different state, but that often forces people to drive 10 hours just to get an abortion. Although many states where abortion is banned make an exception where it's legal to get an abortion if the life of the mother or the life of the child is at risk, this doesn't solve all the problems. For example, if a baby is growing incorrectly, an abortion would still be illegal since technically nobody's life is at risk. Lastly, in lesson 120 through 123, we looked at the Sunday law test. The test at the Sunday law is centered around equality. So understanding the controversies around abortion and being on the side that supports abortion is very important to pass the test.
Lesson 124, the effects of climate change. We know that climate change is a big problem that we face today, and in this lesson, we looked at some of the recent natural disasters that illustrate this point. First, we looked at Canada, and it had a very unprecedented fire season this year. At one point, there were over 1,000 fires burning. This season was made worse because of climate change, droughts, and high temperatures that are an effect of climate change. Not just droughts and high temperatures, but also it got faster. It got hot very fast, which caused a lot of problems. A lot of smoke was also produced, beating Canada's previous record of smoke from wildfires. In midsummer, the smoke made it all the way to the United States and even across the ocean to Europe. There were also fires in Chile where over 1 million acres were burned and several people lost their lives. Well, several, it was over 20, so it's more than several. There were also fires in Maui, one of the Hawaiian islands, where over 100 people died. This year, we have also faced a lot of heat waves, and they're becoming more and more common. And scientists believe that that is because of climate change or global warming, which is an effect of climate change. Heat waves are very dangerous. Every year, thousands of people die from it. And this has been an issue all over the world. This year, there was very significant heat waves in places like Spain, China, Greece, and Mexico. Spain, I believe, topped their heat record. China, it was like over 56 degrees Celsius. Mexico, um, some people died. A lot of people died in Mexico, over 200. And Chile also had some a very bad heat wave this summer. These aren't the only types of natural disasters that are happening this year. This year, we are also in an El Nino, which scientists believe is happening more frequently because of climate change. And one of the characteristics of an El Nino is hotter ocean temperatures, which is because of global warming. The ocean is heating up, so El Ninos are becoming more frequent. And with an El Nino, that can affect many natural weather patterns. For example, in India, their monsoon season, which is over now, but earlier in this year, their monsoon season was much drier thanks to the El Nino, and that affected many of their crops, making food prices higher and just not very good for the people that live there. There were also hurricanes like Hurricane Hillary, which hit Baja California and the state of California. Climate change doesn't always make things hotter, it also makes weather patterns more extreme. And so this hurricane was both unexpected and uncommon, and at least two people lost their lives in Mexico because of it. Countries like Sudan are also facing um, extreme weather due to winds or water. For the past few years, Sudan has been flooded a lot. Hundreds of thousands of people have been displaced, and thousands of acres of crops have been destroyed. And all of this thanks to climate change. Humans aren't the only organisms affected by climate change. In this lesson, we also gave the example of emperor penguins. Thanks to global warming, we all know Antarctica's sea ice is melting. And last year, in 2022, scientists recorded that a majority of the colonies they were observing had, well, in a majority of the colonies they were observing, none of the emperor chicks survived. They believe that this is because of climate change and the sea ice being broken up and melting too early in the season. If this keeps happening, emperor penguins will go extinct. Lastly, we looked at a court case that happened in the state of Montana. This was Held versus State of Montana. In this case, some children in the state of Montana sued the government, claiming they had a right to a clean, safe environment. The Supreme Court of Montana actually ruled in favor of the children against fossil fuel companies. So, climate change is a current problem, and we can see this not only affecting people, but it's also affecting animals all around the globe.
Lesson 125, Revisiting the Diadochi Wars. So this lesson was presented and published on October 1st of this year, 2023. In lesson 125, we first looked at Pyrrhus's actions in Macedonia. In 317 BC, a general called Cassander took control of a city called Athens in Macedon. He put Demetrius Phaleron in charge of the city, who ruled for 10 years. In 307 BC, which is 10 years later, Demetrius, another general, another general called Demetrius of Macedon, he placed Athens under siege and overthrew Demetrius Phaleron. Cassander got mad at this because he obviously wanted Demetrius Phaleron in power, and he went into alliance with three other generals, Lysimachus, Ptolemy, and Seleucus, and they formed that alliance against Demetrius, and they four became the allies. In 303 BC, a general called Pyrrhus, who ruled in Epirus, went into alliance with Demetrius and Demetrius's father Antigonus. In 301 BC, the Battle of Ipsus took place. On one side, there was Antigonus, Demetrius, and Pyrrhus, and on the other side, there was Lysimachus, Seleucus, and a lot of Cassander's army. Ptolemy didn't come to this fight. The battle was ultimately won by the allies, and Antigonus was killed. In 209 BC, Cassander died, and after a series of events, Demetrius took control of his territory. In 291 BC, Demetrius was besieging Thebes when Pyrrhus decided to invade Thessaly, which cut off Demetrius from his supply. Demetrius and his army went up to confront Pyrrhus, but Pyrrhus didn't want to fight, so he just went back to Epirus, allowing Demetrius to finish the siege. From 289 to 288 BC, Demetrius invaded Epirus, and he invaded Epirus because he was mad that Pyrrhus had cut him off from his supplies, and also because Demetrius and Pyrrhus's relationship had been deteriorating over time in general. From 288 to 287 BC, Demetrius went to Athens and began to build a large army. Lysimachus, Seleucus, and Ptolemy didn't like Demetrius getting more powerful, so they convinced Pyrrhus to join their alliance. In 287 BC, Pyrrhus and Lysimachus officially defeated Demetrius, and Seleucus was able to capture him later. Where was I? From 287 to 285 BC, Lysimachus waged a cold war on Pyrrhus. Since Pyrrhus was given control of Macedon, which is the part of Demetrius's territory, Lysimachus made the Macedonians doubt if Pyrrhus was a good leader since he wasn't Macedonian. And lastly, in 285 BC, Macedon finally turned against Pyrrhus and went to Lysimachus, which left Pyrrhus with nothing but his original kingdom, Epirus. So in the second half of this lesson 125, we looked at Pyrrhus in Italy, his actions in Italy. In 285 BC, Pyrrhus, over in Italy, there were different small Greek cities. One of these cities was Thurii, and Thurii was being attacked, so they called for Rome, a powerful nation in Italy, to help them. In 282 BC, Rome came to help Thurii and expelled the attackers, but in doing so, they sailed into the Bay of Tarentum, which broke a treaty that they had with another little Greek city called Tarentum. Tarentum responded to the breaking of the treaty by destroying Rome's ships, and Rome declared war on Tarentum. Tarentum knew that they couldn't fight or they couldn't win a fight against Rome, so they asked Pyrrhus for help. In 280 BC, Pyrrhus arrived in Tarentum and began to prepare for war. The same year, in 280 BC, the first battle between Rome and Pyrrhus took place, the Battle of Heraclea. Rome was defeated because Pyrrhus used his war elephants, and since the Romans had never seen elephants before, they were terrified and lost the battle. In 270 BC, the Battle of Asculum took place. At this time, Rome brought anti-elephant cards to help them win against Pyrrhus's elephants, but Pyrrhus's soldiers were just able to take control of the cards and win the battle again. The final battle between Rome and Pyrrhus took place in 275 BC, and this was a battle of Beneventum. Pyrrhus was defeated by his own elephants, who turned around and basically trampled his own army. So Rome won the. Oh my goodness, Rome lost the first two battles, and Rome won the last one. Pyrrhus won the first two, Heraclea and Asculum, and Pyrrhus lost the last one, Beneventum. So Pyrrhus was defeated by his own elephants. After Rome defeated Pyrrhus, the world recognized Rome as an official world power, since Pyrrhus was a really powerful general. When Rome was able to defeat Pyrrhus, that made Rome look really powerful. So in 273 BC, Egypt sent ambassadors to Rome so they could become France. And in 272 BC, Rome sent ambassadors back to Egypt, solidifying their friendship. And also in 272 BC, Pyrrhus was killed. He was fighting in a city of Argos when he got hit in the head with a towel, which knocked him out, allowing a soldier to easily kill him.
Revisiting World War II. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. This one. In lesson 126, titled Revisiting World War II, we looked at the history of World War II and how it lined up with previous histories and our history. We started by looking at 1929, when the Lateran Treaty was signed by Mussolini. Hitler's party became one of the largest in Germany, and Stalin removed all of his opponents. This is when they all became dictators. 1929 was also the beginning of the 10-year period that ended in 1939 when the Spanish Civil War ended. We lined that 10 years up with the 10 years between 1979 and 1989 and between 317 BC and 307 BC. Secondly, we looked at August 23rd, 1939, which is when the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact was signed. The pact had two different parts, the non-aggression part and then the secret part involving the map being drawn to split land between Germany and the Soviet Union, which were the kings of the North and South. We lined this up with 2014, where we marked the collusion between Donald Trump and Putin, who are also the king of the North and the king of the South in our history. We lined this up with 303 BC, when Demetrius, the king of the North, and Pyrrhus, the king of the South, went into alliance. Sorry. And I lost my place. Plus, we lined it up with 282 BC, when Rome declares war on Tarentum after going into alliance with Theory. Thirdly, we looked at September 1st, 1939, when Germany invaded Poland. Due to the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, the USSR was backing Germany, who was then fighting against Poland, France, and Britain, which are the three allies, and this began the Second World War. We lined this up with 2016, when it was Trump, backed by Russia, against the three branches of government. 301 BC, when it was Demetrius, backed by Pyrrhus, against the three allies, and 280 BC, when Pyrrhus begins to prepare for war against Rome. Fourthly, we looked at August 1940. This was when Russia suspended trade with Germany because they were getting too powerful. We lined this up with 2018, which was the Battle of Heraclea in our history, 291 BC, when Pyrrhus invaded Thessaly, and 280 BC, which was the actual Battle of Heraclea, which Pyrrhus won due to his elephants. Next, we looked at June 22nd, 1941, which was Operation Barbarossa, which officially cut ties between the USSR and Germany. We lined this up with 2019, the Battle of Asculum, 289 to 288 BC, when Demetrius invaded Epirus, and 279 BC, when Pyrrhus won the Battle of Asculum because of his elephants again. Then we looked at 1945, which was the end of World War II and the start of the Cold War, because there were two remaining superpowers, which was Russia and the United States. We lined this up with 2021, when we see Russia going down as a superpower, 287 BC, when Pyrrhus shows allies and Demetrius is defeated, and 275 BC, which is when Pyrrhus is defeated by Rome in the Battle of Beneventum. Lastly, we looked at 1989, which was the end of the Cold War, and the USSR, which was the king of the South, as a superpower. We line this up with the Sunday Law, which is the end of Russia in our history, 285 BC, when Pyrrhus, the king of the South, loses everything but his country, and 272 BC, when Pyrrhus is killed. And these are just all of those histories lined up.
And so now it's quiz time. We have one question for each of the lessons we went over today. Question number one. What is the ratio of conservative to liberals currently in the Supreme Court? So how many conservatives are there and how many liberals? So what's the ratio of conservatives to liberals? We have an E. Another E. Looks like another E. That's correct. The conservative to liberal ratio is 6 conservatives to 3 liberals. Question number two. Why are many abortion clinics closing in red states? So we saw that because of one action, many abortion clinics are forced to close. We have a B. Another B. That's correct. Since abortion is banned, they can no longer stay open legally. Or well, they can stay open, but they probably won't make enough money to stay open. So they just be losing money. Question number three. What are some of the results we see due to climate change? So what are some of the things that climate change is causing? We have a G, another G, another G. That's correct. Extreme weather events like heat waves. What else do we talk about? Like El Nino, all these different things that are fires, wildfires, all these can be caused related to climate change. Floods, yeah. Question number four. What were the 3 battles between Pyrrhus and Rome? So these are his actions in Italy. What were the 3 battles that took place? We have a C, another C, another C. That's correct. Heraclea, Asculum, and Beneventum. Pyrrhus won the first 2 thanks to his elephants, but he lost the last one also thanks to his elephants. And final question. What kind of war happened between 1979 and 1989? So when we line up 1979 and 89 with World War II and World War One, we have an F, another F. So when we look at World War II and World War One, there's a 10-year period. And what kind of war takes place there? Another F? And that's correct. A proxy war happens between 1979 and 1989. Oh, congratulations, everybody. Thank you for participating in this quiz.
Okay, does anybody have any questions or comments on the lesson or just a message in general? You can type it in the chat. If not, thank you everybody for coming. You can contact us at youthprophecygroup@gmail.com. This covered 12 months. No, this is the last 6 months. That's why it's called. And I've just forgotten the title. The second half of 2023. It's the last 6 months. The, we did a summary of the first six as well. Um, lesson 121, I believe. You can find it on the website. So you can contact us at youthprophecygroup@gmail.com. Like I said, if you want notes or if you have questions or if you want updates, you want to be on our mailing list, you can get updates or recordings. You can also visit our website, youthprophecygroup.org, for all notes, all slides, all everything.
Now let's close with prayer. Dear Lord, thank you for bringing us to this meeting. Thank you for giving us an understanding of this message. Please continue to be with us and be with all of the priests and the Levites and the Nethinims. We love you. Thank you for first loving us. Amen.
Bye,
Thank
Bye.
you
everybody.
for
Bye.
coming.
Bye.
Bye.